Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I am Bryce Runke.
Ryan, so it's good to see you today.
It's good to see you too, Rodney. Only my mother calls me that.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, hey, here we are. It's getting to be fall, and or headed towards fall, even though it doesn't feel like it. Feels like we're stuck somewhere in the Sahara Desert.
It's pretty warm.
God bless. They're saying we might break the record of 71 days of 100 degree plus temperatures.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Dang.
Good. And that was set back in 2011, the 71 days. So we may be setting a record.
Dude, it's been brutal lately. It's been brutal.
They were talking about climate change and showing how temperatures have been going up. And it was on the Today Show, and they were showing weather from the 1970s to today, and just showing how weather has gotten just dramatically a lot hotter across the country.
Sure.
And so it makes me glad. You know what? But I'll take this, because when it's, 10 feet of snow in New York, Boston, Chicago, and we're out on a patio, enjoying meals and drinks and the like, I'll take that. Yeah. I'm kind of ornery. I'll take pictures of us doing that and then send it to my friends up north. And they're going, wish you were here. And then, of course, you get... but anyway, hey...
jerk.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. I get told I'm number one frequently.
You're number one.
There's some things that we're good at.
Yep.
Some things that the more we do, the better we get at it. For example, when I first started teaching, my lessons weren't that great. I wasn't very good at budgeting my time, making sure I got all the material covered, all that kind of. In fact, I kind of apologize now to those students I had way back at the very beginning of my teaching career, because I think I'm better at it.
Yeah.
And because, after 20 years, I hope you get better at something.
Yeah. Hopefully you're growing.
Yeah. So I ran across this article.
Okay.
The guy that wrote this, his name is Robert. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but he is a professional social worker. And he came up, he wrote this article. Again, I just like to surf, my news, in my news feeds and then stuff that pops up on my Twitter accounts. And, so I find all kinds of interesting stuff. And so anyway, this social worker, he was talking about when we really put time and effort into something, we become really good at it. Mm-hmm. But he said, one thing that tends to be a problem is our relationships, and in particular, how to handle our relationship problems. Because we don't think about it well, we avoid it, whatever it might be. So as a consequence, our relationship can become problematic, and then we may not maybe resolve it in the best ways. And so he came up with some basic skills, he says, for handling relationship problems. I mean, I would admit I have relationship problems if I had relationship problems.
Yeah. That's a good point.
God knows I've had all kinds of relationship problems. I mean, hey, that's why it's called divorce, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think we've all fallen into that category.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily divorce, but relational issues.
Well, yeah, because...
If you don't, then, man, what's the secret? Because we would like to know.
No kidding. Did you get a hold of this Robert guy years ago? Are you a patient of his?
Jeez.
But anyway, so as I saw this, as I was reading through the article, I thought, oh my gosh, we could I could benefit from this. And so I thought, if you're ready, we can talk about some of his basic skills that he says we ought to have or be aware of, so that way when dealing with a rocky relationship, how to mend it, how to make it less of a problem.
Yeah.
All right, so
Let's do it.
All right, well, the first thing he talks about is anger. In specifics, controlling your anger.
Okay.
Now, I got to tell you, I think I have a bit of an anger problem.
You say?
Well, I think so sometimes.
Why?
Well, because sometimes I yell at people. I mean, sometimes I yell at people when they aren't listening. Sometimes I yell at people when they aren't paying attention. Sometimes I yell at people. Oh, wait a minute. That's all while I'm driving.
I was just about to say, this sounds awfully similar to you being in the vehicle.
Now, I am getting better. Okay. I don't yell near as often, though I haven't been driving as much. Gas at
Oh my gosh,
$4.50, $5 a gallon. Though I did see it's now. It's
coming down.
Yeah, I saw $3.79.
Yeah,
and I'm going crud.
Diesel's still up there though, so that's not fun.
Anyway, but again, controlling anger, and I got to tell you, there are 3 generations living in our house,
right?
And it sometimes gets to be a little conflicting. And I will tell you straight up that I can go from 0 to 60 without thinking about it. And that happened actually here just recently, where I went out to get me a beer out of the fridge, and 12 hours before, it was, anyway, the afternoon before, there were 3 bottles of beer out there in the fridge.
Yeah.
I go out there was 1 bottle of beer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going, wait a minute. I didn't have any. Who the heck drank my beer?
Right.
And so when I found out who it was, well, I went from 0 to 60 without asking questions.
Right.
I didn't, I passed go 2 or 3 times, I didn't even pause to collect my $200. I just went, woo! And I went, and I was overly aggressive.
Yeah.
I did not control my anger. And Sherry was polite to remind me. Your anger caused you to do and say things that were contrary to what you really wanted to communicate.
Right.
And I am sorry to say that I do this too often. My anger, when I can control my anger,
yeah,
I do very well. I can communicate my displeasure, my frustration, my whatever the issue might be, and in a way that is productive, in a way that is able to express my thoughts without all that hostility.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I could figure out how to do that all the time. And that's kind of what this guy was saying.
Yeah.
Was about the issue of trying to not let it boil over.
Well, I will say that putting yourself in a vulnerable position and being on, the live air here, if you will, that's growth. And I think you're making a conscious effort to get better at that. And it's not going to happen overnight.
No, it's getting better. I mean,
right, because you are, it's called self-aware. Well, maybe not that moment, but you spend time, obviously, with the help of others like your lovely bride, who will politely explain to you. Then you could, from what I'm gathering is, I know that you probably spend a little time in reflection, and then you need to become more self-aware of that. And so it sounds like you are growing. I have noticed the couple times that we have driven, it has been more peaceful.
Well, I mean, you think back to when we first started working together almost 11 years ago.
Yeah.
That was a very difficult time in my life. Well, I guess in yours too, because you had gone, you were in the early stages of divorce.
Right.
I was in the aftermath of mine, and I was in a really darker place than I thought.
Yeah.
And I would go that 0 to 60. They say water boils at 271 degrees Fahrenheit. I think for the longest time I was sitting at about 270. And it didn't take much to get that 1 extra degree to boil over. And I didn't realize it until a few years later, where one of my coworkers came to me and she goes, you really are less angry. She said, that first year teaching across the hall from you, I was worried for you because you were angry and yelling all the time.
Wow.
And it didn't register with me. And so therefore my ability to have and deal successfully with relationship problems were minimal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with this just from my own experience that if I can control my anger, well, my ability to deal with whatever is causing me to be less than happy can be successfully addressed.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyway, so controlling your anger, if you can.
If you can.
Mostly just stay the hell. Never mind. Moving on. All right. So, one of the other things that I think is the guy talks about is anxiety. More specifically, your ability to control things.
Yeah.
Are you a control freak?
If we were to pull Suzanne up here, she'd be like, there are some things that he likes. I like the house to be clean. So you came up here that one day and I gave you a hard time about tracking mud in. Next thing you know, behind you, there's a freaking vacuum.
Yes.
I have to tell you this. I wasn't mad at you. I just like I'm a clean. I guess I'm a clean freak. I don't know. To me, okay, I'm going to point this out. My desire to be this clean freak has to do with childhood.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to identify that. And I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but it just, for me, again, stemming from childhood, I don't want things to be a mess. I want it to be clean. So the kids' toys are all over the place. It drives me nuts. Up here in this game room, it's a game room. Now, they should pick it up after themselves, and I'm trying to condition the little ones to do that. I'm still, Braddock does a decent job, but I have to remind him every once in a while. He's pretty good. Right, just trying to condition them to clean up after them, be neat, right? Because I personally believe, I know that some will disagree, and a lot of people will agree that, if things are a mess here inside, then externally things are going to be a mess. I believe there is a correlation, and so that's another reason why I want things to be clean. But anyways, I know I made that joke with you, but when Suzanne was going through her interview process,
oh no,
she was on, and thank God it wasn't like the CEO or something, right? I'm not going to downplay the lower level person, right? Interview. And I busted out the little dirt devil, and I'm going around. And she handled it with such grace. She came out and she's like, "Really? Did you need to vacuum at that point? And why?" There was stuff on the floor. She's like, "Oh, I don't know. The person that I was on the interview with, I had to say, oh, I'm sorry. That's my clean freak husband. He's vacuuming." I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally didn't even it just instinctively go get the vacuum and clean this up because there's a piece of grass on the floor, whatever it was. But She was so sweet about it. She's like, "Oh, it's no big deal," but like, seriously, I'm like, "Oh."
Speaking of that, there was on the Today Show yesterday or the other day. A lady was doing an interview, and it was recorded. Anyway, while she was doing the interview, her husband walks behind her. He had been in or was headed to the shower because he was in his skivvies and a shower cap.
No way.
And so, anyway,
Shower cap.
what kind of anyway?
Oh,
It makes
classic.
yes. So I will say that in some aspects, I too am a control freak.
Okay.
I guess a lot of it comes from being a teacher, where at school I am, and I guess this is where a lot of my anger comes from, or my relationship issues struggle a lot is at school, because I control my world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always remember that my world does not exist outside the classroom.
Right.
And so I try to control that which I cannot control, which creates then stress and anxiety. I can control how I teach and how I handle my issues.
Right.
What I can't control is how other people deal with the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's cell phones or bathroom or going to the vending machines or getting DoorDash delivered to their class, or, taking a stress walk around the building for an hour. All these kinds of things. These are not things that I can control. And
Right.
so when I can, and this is the second issue that the social worker was writing about, that if we can understand that there is a limit to what we can control,
Right.
then we can reduce our anxiety, which can reduce our relationship issues.
Mm-hmm.
As I keep being reminded of, I can't control what happens to me. I can only control my response.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what he's saying here, because he quotes, control can feel more suffocating when you are living with someone, or even worse, if these kinds of issues have been going on for a long time. Because he says it's a power play or a manipulation play. When I was married to Eric's mother, there was a lot. She was an absolute control. She was a control freak, a manipulator. In my class that I'm taking right now on adult psychopathology, I'm learning a lot about some of her mental health issues that encouraged and contributed to her controlling and manipulating, and it then, of course, dramatically impacted our relationship.
Right.
And so I think when you recognize that you're a partnership, because that's helped Sherry and I. It's not a power trip. It's a collaboration. It's a cooperation, and let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
And when we work together, things go a whole lot smoother.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's I have been there a handful of times where it's like, oh, this is my show. Right. This is how it's gonna go. Where I've had to been reminded, not necessarily by anyone, just it's just popped in my head. Don't forget, this is a partnership. We're a team. We should be working with each other, not against each other. We should be working to bring the best out of each other, not the worst out of each other. And so we should both strive to be on that mission, right? That we have for our marriage and for our family. But sometimes, I first to admit it, I go there and I forget, and it's. I get in my head and I'm go mode, and this is how it's going to go. Take it or leave it. It's my way or the highway. It's not all the time, but I have to. I might get a look, or it just popped in my head. Whoa, pump the brakes, Turbo. Right? There's other people around that are impacted by your behavior or your actions.
And that's, I kind of think, what he's saying. In fact, at the very end of this portion, he says, instead of telling someone to get off my back, instead say, tell me what you're worried about.
Mm.
And again, it's not always what you say, but kind of how you say it.
Right.
I mean, I remember my parents telling me that your tone of voice, but just rearrange those words.
Right.
You can still get the information you want, but try and diffuse a situation versus instigating or fanning the flames, so to speak.
Right.
And so, all right. So if we can control our anger and control our control issues, well, that might help with our relationship issues.
Yeah.
All right. So then comes the third topic, or the third item, and he titled it "Looking for the Problem Under the Problem." I got to tell you, when I blow a gasket, it's almost never about the event.
Right.
It's about something else.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Evan came over to the house the other day, and he goes, I don't know why, I'm just really in a pissy, foul mood.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm glad that you shared that, because if you're going to, that lets me know that you know what? Don't really say a whole lot. Don't ask a whole lot of questions. And because if he blows up, well, he's giving you forewarning that he can't tell me, he doesn't know exactly why he's feeling that way, just that he's feeling that way. Mm-hmm. And I know that for a lot of times, for me, it's not, okay, I get a kid coming up to me and he goes, McCall, what'd I miss? I was gone yesterday. Well, that's the first time that kid's asked me that question. That is the 1,718th time in a month I have heard that question. So when I blow up on you for asking me a question that I've already answered to you time and again, and you've heard me say the same thing to all the other wonderful people who have missed my class,
right?
What to do. It's not you. It's not what you asked. There's always a problem under the problem.
Right.
And so his suggestion is to look for why. What is causing the problem? What's the problem under the problem?
Dig a little deeper.
Yes.
Because you're going to find the root of that.
Yeah. So instead of maybe taking offense to why somebody's jumping your butt, okay, fair enough. I'm sorry I did that. What's really going on? Mm-hmm. And when you're encouraging that person to share then what it is that they're really frustrated at, I mean, because there's been times where, Sherry's got a real stressful job. I wouldn't want it. It's very complicated. It's very demanding. And so sometimes I'll come up to her and I'll say, well, watch what, you pick the show we watch tonight. I am sick and tired of making decisions all day. You know what? All I want to do is just veg in front of the TV. You pick the dang show. Okay, I thought I was being nice. But again,
right, yeah.
Instead of taking offense to being told to pick the show, how about the fact that for the last 12 hours straight, she's been dealing with making solving one silly issue after another, making so many decisions that, you know what, you picked the damn TV show.
Right.
Don't tell me to pick the TV show. I'm tired of making decisions.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, well, then that makes sense. And suddenly, boom, my frustration goes down. My all the red flags of fight or flight get turned to yellow or green flags of just go.
Right.
And so I think that's, I don't know. I think that's a very key part because, again, with Eric's mother, there was never a what's the problem under the problem.
Right. I personally like where this is going and what you've been talking about, because this is right at me, right at Suzanne. She's much like Sherry. And now it's quarter in for her. So
Yeah.
it's real busy.
Well, and we're leaving next Wednesday, 4 days before the end of the month. So everything has to be done.
No, everything has to be done. Yeah. And then back up. Well, Suzanne just started this new role, like 4 weeks ago. So she's brand new in,
Yeah.
still. And so she's, trying to, I don't want to say impress, but, bring her A game, because she does want to, I guess prove, that, hey, you guys brought me in, I'm going to do this exceptional job. And so she, so she's got that on her plate. And then we've got the little girls. And then I started a new job. Obviously, we think we all know that. And so much to like what you just said, like, I think yesterday it was a long day for both of us. And I think it was Bristol who got up in the middle of the night and she was crying for, I don't know, maybe it was her teeth or something, but we both got up. And then Briar got up early. And so we're tired. So not only are we going on a lack of sleep, we both have full-time jobs. And for her, it's like extra crunch time because it's quarter in. We're both, a month, 2 months into our new roles. And so that's stressful, but it's like, to your point, is like, what do you want to do for dinner? And my response, I don't know, or I don't care. Can you help me decide? I really don't care. You decide. And I know as I'm talking about this right now openly, that's not the right response. I could throw all the excuses. Well, she's got a new job. I've got a new job. My job's important too. Right. And I didn't sleep good because the kids got up, or, XYZ, fill in the blank, or I could choose to respond differently. But for me, it was, no, I'm just going to kind of be a jerk, I guess, because I'm tired too, whatever, blah, blah, instead of being, the man who's, the guy who needs to practice what he preaches, right? Okay, so again, that self-awareness, being mindful, being aware of what others are encountering as well. And, and so I know for us, it's been a transition. It's a new season for both of us. And so, and then with her dad. And so there's all these things going on, and I could relate to this one. I know I've gone on a little bit longer than anticipated, but it's just kind of good for me to regurgitate it openly because I need to be better, period.
Well, again, we don't get into a relationship to have problems.
Right.
But every relationship has them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it comes to communication. And I think that's kind of the key point of what the social worker guy is talking about is, okay, how can you be better at talking about this, working through it in a healthy, productive, successful manner? Because if you can't, well, we know what happens.
Yeah.
In marriages, that becomes divorce. In relationships, that becomes whatever the opposite of a relationship is, a breakup,
right.
An unfriending, so to speak. So I have friendships and relationship with people because I freaking like them.
Right.
And I swear I will never go through another divorce again.
Yeah.
I will do everything possible.
Right.
And now having a good partner is a very good component to that. And so anyway,
it's a beneficial piece.
But going through all this is, like you said, it's a good way to look in the mirror to remind me how I need to look to do things a little bit better.
Right.
I kind of know this, but just because you know it doesn't mean you actively do it.
Yeah, because in the moment it's a little bit different.
To put the brakes on and move from the fight or flight part of your brain that's kicking in and go to that rational thinking part of the brain that says, hold on, before you throw the baby out with the bathwater, let's circle back and take a look at this.
Which, you saying baby, this reminds me of a different episode that we did, I don't know, season 2 or something like that, with our kids are watching. Our kids are watching, and, here I am, not that I was being vicious or, trying, to be an a-hole, but the kids were around. Now, I'm not going to say, well, Briar's only 3, because she emulates quite
I'm sure
a bit. So to me, it's another good reminder. Our kids are watching. Well, Bryce, your kids are watching. So model the behavior. You may be stressed. You may be overwhelmed. You both might have new jobs, but model that behavior anyways. Do it anyways, because our kids are watching, and it's your partner. It's your spouse. And so practice what you preach. All that stuff you say on your podcast. Yeah. Why don't you start applying it now, big timer?
No kidding. Well, that brings us, as you talk about that brings to the fourth point that the social worker says. And he says he titles it "Finding the Moral of the Story." And circling back. Okay, so you have your argument, you have your conversation, your discussion, your maybe hostile, aggressive conversation. But he says, okay, so circle back. What? Well, basically, okay. I'm going to read exactly instead of trying to paraphrase. He says, solve the problem that caused the argument, and then why. Why did it get out of control? What did you do? How did you respond? Because it says basically it's learning about what pushes your buttons and what pushes your partner's buttons.
Right.
And when you can learn what pushes the buttons, you can learn to not push them.
Yeah.
And so, again, the moral of the story, going back. And this is something that Sherry does real well with me, and I try and do with her, is to circle back. We have the conversation, but then, a day or two later, or maybe we have an argument or something happens in the morning, well, then that night. I'll try and, circle back. And again, because this is that reflection that you talked about a little bit ago. Taking that time to assess and evaluate.
Right.
Because again, the goal is to not have unhappy conversations.
Yeah.
Or at least not have them as often or as severe. I don't think you can not have unhappy conversations with friends or, or spouses.
Right.
But how to do a better job of managing those.
Right.
And so the circling back or the moral part is a key part that this guy says, and I think you might be onto something.
What are you've got the defense attorney and the prosecutor, right? Correct? Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I drew a blank on those. I was listening to a podcast, and it ties right into this. And I think when marriages, in relations, a lot of times when there are issues,
Yeah.
people jump to the persecution side.
You're attacking me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in a marriage, and I can't remember, it was Dr. Chapman, I think it was. He's written several books, but he was on a podcast, and I was like trying to take mental notes. Whereas we should lean more to the defense side, because that's your partner. Don't put them on trial because they, made a mistake, or fill in the blank. You should be on the defense side, right? Don't be trying to burn them at the stake. Don't be trying to persecute them, right? Get more on the defense side and work together to solve the issue. Communicate better. What is the moral of the story here? Don't try and put them on blast. And I know, I've been there in the past. I don't know if you have or not, but I don't even know if this is resonating with you or
no,
even if our listeners. But I think we tend to lean more towards the prosecution when there are issues that arise. Oh, it's your fault. So, whatever. I don't know.
Well, and I think that is, I've done that.
Yeah.
And of course, once you start attacking me, I'm going to come at you with both barrels.
Exactly.
And what the social worker is saying in this is that we all make mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's okay to make mistakes, but it is even more important to learn from those mistakes. And so, the reflection is a key component. All right, so the last one is avoid the win. Well, he calls it working towards the win-win compromises. You can't have a winner and a loser in a conversation or in a fight, a debate, an argument, whatever it might be. Because if you do, there's resentment. Mm-hmm. And all that does is postpone the next phase, the next one. It's make it so that you both walk out.
Yeah.
You can apologize. I'm sorry. I mean, as we're talking about this, I need to do this when I get home later today. Had a whole argument, and the other side did something that I thought was extremely selfish, rude, and violated boundaries. But I did not communicate that in my outburst. So what I need to do is go and say, hey, look, what happened I did not like. My outburst did not make the problem better. So I apologize to you for my outburst at what happened. Mm-hmm. But here's what really, got my goat. Right. And if you had done this, then it would have mitigated the action and therefore my response to what had happened.
Right.
And so, but making a compromise. Life is about compromise.
Yeah.
If you come a little and they come a little, or you give a little and they give a little,
right.
Well, neither win, yet you both win.
Right.
You don't get 100% of what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key part of any conversation, debate, argument, whatever it might be. Because it can't be my way all the time.
Right. Well, and I think in healthy relationships, relationships that thrive, those individuals, I think are very mindful of the fact that they at times need to give up their right to be right. They have to give up themselves. They have to sacrifice, knowing that this is going to be beneficial for our relationship. Relationships that thrive own those mistakes. Mm-hmm. Hey, I really dropped the ball on this one. I screwed this up or whatever. Or like you're saying, relationships that thrive are very good at apologizing, very good at communicating what you were just saying, right? And that helps create what's our mission: to help equip families
to thrive,
to help communicate, right? To equip families with tools to help them to thrive, to really create a better environment. And so we're talking about, building resentment, and all that leads to bitterness. So we want to not create an environment where it's bitter, but by you applying what you just said, that's moving the needle forward to that better, healthier family dynamic. And so I'm there with you. I could ramble off just in this last week, like some things I probably need to walk downstairs after this and be like, listen.
I'm sorry. No, I'm with you. And it is, I guess that's why I always enjoy when we tape these episodes, because it is a nice reminder that I need to be better at doing these kinds of things. I know what I need to do. The key is to actually now do it more regularly.
Right.
So,
yeah, taking this and then just not shutting down the podcast and going on our way, but really, again, same thing with you. this is great advice, and we've aired some things. Now we need to go and apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, what we want our listeners to do. Take it and, take the good stuff, whatever, take it, all of it, whatever. I know that not everyone is going to agree with us, but apply these things. And so that's the critical piece. If you're not applying it, then you ain't growing, you ain't getting better.
Well, no, and it's hard to have a good relationship, a healthy relationship, a satisfactory relationship that makes you happy.
Right.
And so it's because life is not about stuff. It's about relationships.
Yep, I agree.
And the better they are, the happier we actually can be.
Right.
All right. Well, that's all for my soapbox.
Well, good stuff, man. That's good stuff. I'm going to go apply some of those things.
Yes, I will later today myself.
Well, good luck.
Well, thank you to you as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Bryce. Y'all have a good one.
See ya.